So this is the first video on the first part of book one of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. In our particular class, this is sort of the synthesis that we've been waiting for. We've seen the thinkers that we've read first, Kant and Mill, Epictetus, Beauvoir, isolate certain aspects of human experience, peace, freedom, the consequences of our actions, the rationale behind our actions, and try to make that isolation into the highest good, the thing that we should choose all of our actions for. So what I would argue for you is that, and watch as you read to see if this is accurate, Aristotle seems to synthesize all the aspects of human experience and try to use each one of them to make a complicated, many moving pieces ethics that simply maps more onto most people's ordinary experience of what they feel is possibly the right thing to do. So we have to hold Aristotle up to a lot. He has to answer a lot of questions for us about how most ethical situations to us seem to be ambiguous in some way. We often seem to choose the lesser of two evils. Neither Kantianism nor utilitarianism has really given us like a really satisfying answer about what we would do in that circumstance. So let's begin reading Aristotle's ground rules, which come in this opening section, and see watch carefully as he builds his argument over the course of the 10 books. So if you take a look at book 1, chapter 1, you look at the first sentence. He says, "Every art and every inquiry, and likewise every action and choice, seems to aim at some good. And hence it has been beautifully said that the good is that at which all things aim." So there's a lot going on in that sentence. For you, the student, the reader, try to think about each example in turn, how art, inquiry, action, choice, how each one of these could be responsible for or be beholden to a particular kind of good. Choice is the most obvious one. It's fascinating to think of every inquiry having a good as well. Choice and action, these are the most concrete, the most obviously ethical. But Aristotle in this section is going to use a lot of art examples as well. That is to say, like craft examples. So he says, okay, we see that everything that we do, every single thing, whether I'm asking what's true, whether I'm making something, whether I'm choosing to do something or I'm just simply doing something, there always seems to be a good involved in each of those things. But we see a difference among the goods that we choose Hey babe, what are you asking?
How long is it going to be?
This is going to take 20 minutes. Okay. Can you set a timer? Set a timer on your computer. Thanks.
Okay.
Henry, can you close the door?
Sure.
Thanks, babe. So when I start to think, if every action, everything I do, everything I'm trying to ask about, if all of these things aim at a good, then I start to think about how I relate all the different kinds of goods that my action aims at. And he says, sometimes we have ends beyond the things that we do the actions for. Sometimes there's a result of the thing that I'm doing that seems to be different from the activity itself. So he says there are many actions and arts and kinds of knowledge, of which the end is many. Of medical knowledge, the end is health. Of shipbuilding skill, it's a boat. Strategic art, it's victory. Household management, it's wealth. So if I were in class, I would ask you guys to consider each example, but I'll let you do that by yourself. But so the way of thinking about this is to say, distracted by my friend, what's the point of bridle making? Do you guys know what a bridle is? Look it up. It's the kind of thing that directs a horse when you put it on their head, the bit goes in the mouth, and you can pull on one side or the other to make the animal go in one direction or the other. The reason why we make bridles is to direct the horse. But why does the human want to direct the horse? That direction comes from the person riding it. Why is that person writing it? In this context, it's because they are a cavalry officer and they need the horse to go in one direction or the other in battle. But the person where the individual officer goes, that's dependent on the general's art. And so the general directs the cavalry officer and all the rest of them in different places. And what's the point of the strategic art of generalship? It's to win, to have victory. So this example is like showing us how different kinds of goods and different kinds of ends are sort of nested within each other. It seems to almost build like a little pyramid, if you will. You start with the most simple thing, just somebody sitting down and making a bridle, and then it goes all the way up to the general's desire for victory in war. So this is the thing that we've often talked about. We talked about this in the context of Mill. You have to think about your own life in terms of a hierarchy of nested ends. Why did you wake up? You had to get to class. Why did you go to class? To learn. Why were you learning? In part because learning is good, but also you wanted to get that degree. Why did you get that degree? You wanted a job. Why did you get that job? You needed money. Why did you need money? Often people struggle here because it seems like money would be the end. We just need money, but money's for something. What is it for? A sense of security. Why did you want that security? Because you felt that without it, your life would be lesser. What was the full thing that you were looking for in your life? That's the question we're asking. Is there some one good, human good, at the top of all of our choices and actions that we could understand as the unifying and organizing end of everything we do and we think and every choice we make? So in chapter 2, he says, if there is some end, all of the things that we do that we want on account of itself and the rest on account of this one, and we don't choose every single thing on account of something other than it, because in this way, the choices would go beyond all bounds and desire would be empty and pointless. It's clear this would be the good. And in fact, the highest good. So he's saying that this hierarchy of goods that's nested within each one within the chain, we're looking for the top thing, because if we were always choosing all the stuff we do for some other thing, it almost seems like our life would waste itself in like sort of like a machinery of endless choices. It'd be very good to have one unifying thing that sits at the top of all of our choices and actions. So if this is true, if there is some one kind of unifying good to all of the things that we do, wouldn't an awareness of it have great weight in our life, so that archers who have a target, if we were like them, we could try to figure out what the target of our life would be, and we would just be better off. We could aim our life at something better. So that's what this book is about, trying to clarify for us what the unifying good would be for human beings. So not to give too much away of the ending, but the next few chapters try to clarify our basic sense. The name for this is happiness. Many of the authors that we have read have talked about happiness. They've talked about different kinds of goods. The Stoics wanted peace. Beauvoir wanted freedom. Kant wanted sort of like for ourselves to understand ourselves as ends in ourselves. Mill thought justice was for the sake of utility, such that we could live a life devoted to pleasure. But happiness is going to be Aristotle's name for all of that, every single one of those goods. If I could analyze each of those goods and put it into some kind of shape or pattern, some kind of hierarchy, even a shifting, at times moving hierarchy, such that I could figure out exactly what that final end that I was aiming my entire life at would be. He points out, and I'll just mention this in passing in chapter 2, there would be some one art, some kind of skill that would arrange all the different arts and capacities within a community. This would be the political art. What everybody should learn, what everyone should do. It seems to organize our lives straightforwardly. It tells us which subjects we ought to be pursuing, what kinds of professions are going to be give us more money. It seems to shape a community within that hierarchy. And so if we knew that kind of knowledge, maybe we wouldn't know what the good is, but we would we would be organizing ourselves in a similar kind of way. So more on that at the end of the book. In chapter 3, he starts to talk about his method. He's trying to point out that all the things that we are talking about here seem to involve a certain kind of inconsistency. Sometimes the good things that we are analyzing, such as wealth, courage, they seem to sometimes be good and sometimes not. And that's a problem for our analysis of this hierarchy of goods. Sometimes courage seems to be good. I mean, courage is a good thing. It's good to be brave, right? But then sometimes people seem to be ruined by courage. They sacrifice their life on account of their bravery. So that makes us question whether I can simply stick courage into a specific part of my chain of goods. And the same is true of wealth. Sometimes wealth seems to be a good for us, and then sometimes it seems to our love for it can destroy our relationship to other things in our life, whether people or other good things that we love that were different from simply the pursuit of wealth. So that's a problem. So each of the things that we're going to talk about are going to sort of twist and turn as we attempt to talk about them. And Aristotle says, yes, that's the point. That's the nature of goods. Sometimes concrete things are good and sometimes they seem to not be. And it's very, very difficult. You can't speak as precisely about them as you desperately desire to. You would like to be a Kantian. You would like to have a universal way of thinking about goods. But Aristotle says that you have to seek the clarity that goes along with the underlying material, the underlying like stuff of action. For precision ought not to be sought in the same way as in all kinds of discourse. His example is you can't look for the same kind of demonstration, the same kind of proof from a geometrician, somebody who's making a definite claim about logically what follows from what principles of geometry, and a rhetorician who will give you a proof about why you should do something, but it's just not going to be as precise. So whatever ethics is, whatever my attempt to understand the highest human good is, I have to recognize from the very beginning that I can only get a kind of rough clarity. His phrase here is, we can only speak roughly and in outline. So he's dismissing both the kind of clarity that Kant demanded from human reasoning about human good and the kind of clarity that John Stuart Mill seemed to think was easy, or seemed to present to us that it was easy, that we could just calculate what would be good and whatever produces more good would be fine. Aristotle was saying the ethical world is just not like that. We know that from human experience. It's just more complicated. That doesn't mean we can't talk about it, but we're going to have to recognize that what we say could flip over into its opposite at any time. So here in chapter 3, he points out, thinking about the difficulties, his train of thought moves on to this really big difficulty. And this is the part that I quoted to you all at the very beginning of the semester. It seems as though it's not helpful for a young person to be a student of politics / ethics because the young are inexperienced in the actions of life. While those things about which politics speaks are the things that are about action. So I'll just finish this up. The problem is, if I'm trying to explain the reasoning behind what the highest good is, and if I'm trying to speak about it by people who believe action is the most important thing, but they also don't have a ton of experience in action, that's going to be a problem. There's something about being willing to take a step back and think about the goods that we base our life on and really try to weigh them and consider what the good of each is. He says it's going to be lost on young, but not young in age necessarily, but people who are mainly motivated by their passions, and which could apply to any of us. In fact, I believe that he thinks that most human beings are like that. Most of us don't analyze the choices that we make particularly well. So, no, not yet. You haven't finished. You haven't finished your work. I'll check on you in just a bit. All right. So now in chapter 4, he starts to analyze most people believe the different kinds of goods are. And he puts it in the terms of what people believe is to be happiness. He says, most of us believe that we just kind of think that the name for the highest thing that we're all aiming at is happiness. That's roughly the word that we use. That's what if we had to make a choice about what we say is at the top of that, the hierarchy of goods, we would call it happiness in English. However, it's just what that would be. People argue about and they don't agree. Some people take it to be something visible and obvious, such as pleasure, wealth, honor. And then some people say this different things at different times of their life. When you're sick, the only thing you can think about is health. When you're poor, you want wealth. And when you're ignorant, you would really like some grand kind of wisdom. So that's a problem. If a lot of people disagree about what the highest good would be, he says, this is going back to chapter 3, it would almost seem as if what all these things would be about something that's just simply conventional and not natural. We would believe that maybe just the things that people call the highest good, pleasure, wealth, honor, maybe it's just a question of custom, of habit, of different communities, the different things that people seem to value in different times and places. Maybe there's nothing natural about it, which is to say, like, maybe there's no one single biological way that we're oriented towards any one particular good. This is a kind of argument about a kind of relativism. Maybe what humans value simply changes. There's nothing fixed. There's nothing natural or biological or necessary to the way that we make choices. He would disagree, but it is important that at the very beginning of the book, that's one of the first things that he considers. Not only are our choices seem to be like the things that we based our choices on seem to change in the individual human. Obviously, they change from time to time. That's a problem for any kind of inquiry into these things. So if you look at chapter 5, he's digressed a bit. He picks it up again. He'll do this a lot. You have to think about somebody who's talking out loud, but also has a very strong sense of where the kinds of questions he's asking and sort of letting them propel him through his train of thought to his conclusion. Always read to the end of a chapter and then also to the end of a book, because he will sort of like consider options and then let them go. But in the middle of the possibility, it'll seem to you as though he's arguing for that possibility. But at the end of the chapter, he'll reject it and he'll say, no, my actual opinion is something else. So watch out for that. So chapter 5, let's think about all the different goods that people seem to claim for themselves and for other people. He says, we see a political life, a life of honor, a contemplative life, but most people, the majority, show themselves to be completely slavish. They're choosing a life that belongs to fatted cattle, but they happen to get listened to because most people who have power share the feeling of Sardanapalus. If you look at the great footnote here in the Sex edition, Sardanapalus was an Assyrian king who was known for saying, eat, drink, and be merry, since the other things are not worth the snap of the fingers. So I love this quotation, 9th century BC, really long time ago, but it's a really familiar psychological position. Basically, the only thing that matters is pleasure. We run across this when we discuss hedonism. It seems as though, psychologically speaking, Aristotle's claiming, most people believe that the point of life is actually just to have a good time. So that could be true. That's one possibility for what this highest good is. But then it also looks like other people seem to pick honor, which is another way of saying respect or success. And that people who choose honor seem to be slightly more serious than the people who are just devoted to pleasure. We talked about this in the Zoom video earlier. It seems like what we want from others when we seek wealth and seek concrete goods in our lives is that other people will appreciate that we have done a good job. That's not a bad thing. But it does have this wrinkle in the way that it's formulated, is that our goods become dependent on other people's recognition, which we can't necessarily claim from them. And this goes back to what we saw in Stoicism. Your reputation is not simply up to you. It can't be up to you really in any meaningful way because it's always dependent on other people. So Epictetus made the point that to be a slave is to be enslaved to the things that you can't control, which is the point Aristotle's making here. He's pointing out that people believe that this is a better form of life, to have honor, respect, success. It seems to be better than pleasure, simple hedonism. But it itself also is just dependent on external things, and you can't hold on to it in the way that you would like. Okay, so we've considered two options, pleasure and honor, and we found reasons that they are not sufficient. But all these things seem to be incomplete. The life of money making seems to be simply instrumental, sought for the sake of something else. We often get tricked into believing it is simply for its own sake, but it in itself needs something more. So this is the beginning of his method, how ethics can be taken and thought about, what we're aiming for, this one organizing good, and trying to talk about common ways that, psychologically speaking and biologically speaking, people aim at. And his positive answer comes in the next section in chapter 7, which we'll talk about in the next video.